Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the best professional wrestling podcast from pillar to post, broadcasting live and in living color from coast to coast. My name is Ray, your host, joined once again by my co-host, my tag team partner, the Arn Anderson, and my Tully Blanchard, JDO. How's it going, brother?
Going on, man? Got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Had an interesting week in wrestling, so I think it's gonna be a fun conversation.
Cold open question, Jordan. Last week was the Super Bowl. The Philadelphia Eagles throttled the defending champion, Kansas City Chiefs. I don't really watch a lot of professional football anymore. So, Jordan, pretend I don't know anything about the NFL. Explain to me the Super Bowl in professional wrestling terms. Give me a match that you think explains what happened last Sunday.
All right. I'm trying to think what would qualify for this. Um, the only thing I can really think of that would explain it, it doesn't hit on every single point. But I think WrestleMania 40, Cody and Roman last year main event, while it doesn't fit exactly the mold, it's as close as I could think of because you got Roman Reigns representing the Kansas City Chiefs, the unstoppable force. He's been champion for a long time. Obviously, the Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls. Um, you have Cody representing Philadelphia. Funny enough, in Philadelphia, um, and you have him losing the previous WrestleMania to Roman. The Philadelphia Eagles lost to the Chiefs two Super Bowls ago. So obviously redemption for that. Um, while Cody doesn't fit the mold of having won a championship previously, like the Eagles did back in 2017, I figured a parallel between a different Rhodes having been a champion before, then Cody now coming back and winning. Which obviously Philadelphia, this is a new regime. A lot of these players are new from the previous Super Bowl champion. And yeah, that was, I feel like it encapsulates it the best where you have this unstoppable force that a lot of times referee shenanigans occur that aids them in winning. Um, and while it wasn't a blowout, you know, obviously Cody wins the title, dethrones the champions, ends that record title reign. So that was what I think is the best encapsulation of it.
Sure. That's good. I didn't think about that, I guess, but that is a good comparison. The Eagles getting redemption over the Kansas City Chiefs. When did the Eagles win in 2017 or 2018?
The NFL years are kind of weird, but I think it's considered 2017
Right, right. But
when
it's
they
the
won.
following year.
Yeah,
Yeah. Cody did win the Ring of Honor championship in 2017.
he did. Yeah,
So
yeah.
when that title actually mattered a little bit. But anyways, yeah, that's good. That's good, man. You know, uh, we both know a lot of people who don't watch the NFL, and some of them who actually watch wrestling, like my girlfriend Summer. So, um, anyways, that's good, man. That's good.
Both of them scripted.
Both sports entertainment. Yes, both sports entertainment. Uh, all the people who the Eagles thinking they might, win within the line and they covered, big time covered. I mean, blew the Chiefs out. A
Hmm.
lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I should have been in Danville last night, or I mean last Sunday. Anyways, all right, back to wrestling. The important matter here. It's been a busy week, like you mentioned, Jordan. I released an episode by myself a little earlier in the week, just because I mean, so much has happened. Really, it's been a huge week. So last Friday, during SmackDown airing, we started getting news that talent were being released. Cedric Alexander, I believe, was the first, and then it was a slew of people. Sonya Deville, Blair Davenport, the authors of Pain, their manager Paul Ellering, who of course, is the legendary manager of the Road Warriors. The Good Brothers were released, and then I'm thinking maybe it was Giovanni Vinci, Isla Dawn, and then Elektra Lopez. Maybe I might have said someone twice, but anyways, I think
Yeah,
Elektra Lopez was the last to be announced.
yeah.
And WWE's talked about, pretty transparently that their quarterly evaluations, if you're in probation, the next evaluation, if you don't meet your quota or whatever it is, you get released. Um, and this was just kind of shocking before WrestleMania to see this many people released. And then I think, the last release we heard about was on Monday, the same day AEW releases Miro, Malakai Black, and Ricky Starks. None of these releases were shocking on the AEW end. I think all we expected all these to happen. Um, just like a lot of talent in AEW, they just weren't being used. Malachi was, but he hadn't really had his head in the game for a long time. He seemed like he wanted to leave for a while. 24 hours later, Ricky Starks debuting in NXT. Got to be a record. Quickest turnaround in the modern wrestling era, at least since the Monday Night Wars.
Mhm.
Just a shocking debut. Him going on NXT was not shocking in and of itself, but the quick turnaround was incredible. So first of all, Jordan, your thoughts on the WWE releases? And to add on to that second question, um who's the biggest impact release in your mind? A guy, either a team or a person who you thought really could have made waves in the WWE?
Um, well, my thoughts on it are, it's not surprising because we've seen WWE do this a bunch of times before. They'll just have this flurry of releases. Um, Nobody on here really surprised me as far as getting released because really none of them were being used either at all or prominently. Um, I mean, maybe the authors of Pain in in Cross's group, I were really the only ones. Everybody else was just kind of floating around. Giovanni Vinci, they kind of did a weird repackage of him, but then just buried it for some reason. So I don't really understand the whole deal with that. But none of it was really surprising to me. Um, probably better for them to be able to go and do something else and go somewhere else where they might actually be able to be used prominently. Um, as far as who I think the biggest impact is, I mean, really, obviously Cedric Alexander, I always thought was good, especially when he was in the Hurt Business. Probably will end up in AEW in the Hurt Syndicate if I had to guess. Um, Other than that, the authors of Pain were good when they were, being used. Just they never really got a shot.
Mhm.
They didn't. I don't think they really knew how to use them. Um, and then Vinci, he was good when he was in Imperium,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think any of the people in this group, I think, were going to be major impact players. Um, they drafted Blair Davenport to the main roster, and I don't think they ever used her in anything prominent.
Yeah.
So, I don't think anything was going to come out of this. So it's probably better for them all around if they are able to go somewhere else.
Um, Going on, let's start with Ricky Starks on the AEW side, because on multiple fronts, I think it's disappointing because both of us were huge Ricky Starks fans in AEW. His feud with MJF, his feud with CM Punk on Collision, his feud with Powerhouse Hobbs, all were really entertaining. When he was the FTW champion, he was really entertaining and brought a lot of prestige to that title. Had some high profile matches for that title. Um, And just over the last, 11 to 10 months, he hasn't been used. Was, formerly the tag team champion with Big Bill. They dropped that title to Sting and Darby. He was in limbo for a while and then he disappeared. And, he's done interviews with the likes of Chris Van Fleet, showed up in GCW, showed up in House of Glory Wrestling. Has been very critical of Tony Khan and AEW for not allowing him to work because he kind of says he doesn't know why. He was never really given a reason, or maybe if he wasn't at liberty to say. We don't really know. But uh, thoughts on him debuting in NXT the next night? I mean, what when you saw that, what was your immediate reaction?
Um, I was shocked. Um, Not that he would go to NXT. I'm not surprised by that at all. I figured eventually, whenever he did get released, he would go. But I mean, like the next day, he shows up. I mean, like you said, that's got to be a record. Like you used to see some of this stuff happen back during the Monday Night Wars, but nothing like this. Um, yeah, it was crazy, man. I saw it on social media where NXT and Ricky Starks were trending, and I looked up, and there's Ricky Starks just showing up in the crowd, and everybody there was shocked. I mean, to see him show up there, and they were all chanting his name, so they knew who he was, um, which was good to see. And yeah, just I think really, really surprised at how just quick the turnaround was. And maybe it's because they kind of already had an idea that's what he was going to do, and obviously he's friends with Cody and things like that. So there probably were some things maybe in the works. Um, but yeah, I just and it's especially it's surprising because with WWE they're obviously notorious for having 90-day no compete clauses in their contracts, whereas with AEW obviously they don't.
Well,
Um,
well, that's not entirely true.
well, I
Miro
mean,
and I mean, supposedly Miro and Malakai Black do have 90-day compete clauses. Ricky
yeah,
Stark's
well,
contract was bought out, so that's
yeah,
why
and
he didn't
then
have a not compete clause.
yeah, and I guess Punk didn't have one either because he showed up. I think he said in an interview he didn't have one.
That well, he also got his contract was also bought out, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
he didn't get released normally.
that
They had
works.
to,
Regardless, it's not a blanket 90-day for everybody.
yes, right,
At
right.
least doesn't seem like, or however the contract situations work. But yeah, you just don't see stuff like this happen very often. To a guy who's pretty notable name in wrestling,
Mhm.
Ricky Starks, and obviously what he's done in the past in the ring, and then obviously the situation that he's in or was in AEW where he wasn't being used and it was constantly talked about. So yeah, overall, just complete shock and awe.
Just from my knowledge of sports contracts and wrestling contracts work similarly in a lot of ways. You'd have to imagine that he wasn't really in talks with the WWE while he was under contract because of tampering laws. I mean, you would hope not, obviously, or his contract was violated. But um, so ostensibly, this deal was worked out within 24 hours. I mean, he was released, and within that time, they talked to him. Now, certainly internally, WWE could have had ideas of what they wanted to do with him. They could have seen the writing on the wall, but yeah, it's shocking. You know, uh, I guess a month ago now, Penta debuted on WWE. A little over a month ago now, he debuted on Monday Night Raw of all places. Ricky Starks going to NXT. I made the point when I did my video the other night that it's going to take time for him to acclimate to the WWE system. And kind of, upon reflection, I mean, Penta really didn't have to. He showed up and has the aura of a star already without any experience in the WWE. Do you think NXT is the right home for Ricky Starks, or do you think they should have sent him right to the main roster?
No, I think it's good for right now, because and this is not an original thought from me. This is something I saw somewhere reported that WWE didn't want to throw him right into the mix with WrestleMania season on us because there's so many storylines already going on
Hmm.
that you have him in NXT, you get him established with the WWE, and then once all the WrestleMania season craziness is over, then you can bring him in and kind of have him have a fresh start for the new wrestling year, so to speak. So I think it's going off of that. I think it's a good idea. Not that I don't think you could have put him in there and you could have found something for him. I think he could acclimate pretty well. Um, but I do think it's a good idea to bring him in, get him acclimated with NXT first, and let the WWE audience, who obviously a lot of them know who he is. Some people probably don't, and you can get him established there, and then bring him up to the main roster when you have something for him. But I definitely wouldn't want them to just throw him out there and have nothing planned for him because we've seen how quickly that can really derail somebody's career with WWE. So I think for now this is a good spot for him.
Uh, the NXT men's roster not the strongest. Certainly, they favor the women's side a lot. They have a lot of great women's wrestlers, not a lot of great men's wrestlers. And the top of that division's top heavy. I mean, you have Obafemi, you have Trick Williams, you have an Ethan Page. They're trying to build Eddie Thorpe. Also at the same time, we're not the biggest fans of NXT. We don't watch that shit. So I think he's a shot in the arm for that division. I mean, he's an immensely talented guy. We could talk about that ad nauseum, but he's certainly already one of the most talented guys in that division. Like you said, like you pointed out, he was getting cheered immediately, so people know who he is. Fact of the matter is, though, that more people watch NXT every week than Dynamite. So there certainly are some people who don't, or I mean, there's definitely going to be some fans who aren't familiar with him, even if it's a small, if it's a minority of the fans. So getting him acclimated is great. I think after WrestleMania season, you can insert him right into a feud with the CM Punk or Cody Rhodes, and he'll have that built-in history. I mean, obviously, I think you give him you warm him up, but he can get to that point where he can feud with those guys, and it'll be seamless. Um, Miro and Malakai Black reports indicating that they are heading to the WWE imminently. Whenever their non-compete clause is up, I suppose, if there is one, I guess. What do you think about them returning to the WWE? I think, we've talked about this privately, I think, but what do you think, Jordan?
Um, I mean, personally, I'm not over like I'm kind of neutral on it. I don't love the idea. I don't hate the idea. Ricky Starks was the main one that I want to
Mhm.
see in WWE. And obviously Ray Phoenix whenever that situation is figured out. But I think Malachi was obviously somebody who Triple H thought pretty well of when he was in NXT. And then obviously Miro when he was Rusev. I mean, for he had spurts where he was a really big deal
Mhm.
in the WWE. Uh, and based off of kind of what he was doing in AEW, it was an interesting gimmick, but just it didn't really go far. So, I don't know what exactly they'll do with those guys. I think it would be a good thing for the mid card
Mhm.
to have those guys in there. Malakai's obviously a recognizable figure, and so is Miro, Rusev. So I think it'll be good for the mid card for them. I don't foresee them making the main event players.
Mhm.
Um, but then again, I could be wrong. Maybe they'll want to try to have them in the main event picture at some point. But overall, like I said, I'm kind of neutral on it.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think back to when Miro was the TNT champion in AEW, and that was kind of the golden age of AEW. I think that was the high point of the company. Not necessarily because he was the TNT champion, but I think it helped. I think he was a great guy to hold that title. He brought prestige to it. He had great matches. His gimmick was good. And I'd like to see him take that Redeemer gimmick to AEW. I mean, I'm sorry, to WWE, and do wonders with it. I do think I think SmackDown is in need of some new faces, and while they're not necessarily new, they would be different people on that brand. I don't think Raw needs anyone else. But you mentioned him, Ray Phoenix. I believe yesterday rumor broke that he and Tony Khan are looking to negotiate his contract for a release to get him out of his deal so he can go, onto WWE. This has, been a saga, obviously, and not, an acrimonious one. Ray Phoenix has repeatedly expressed his disinterest in being in AEW, his frustration with having that injury time tacked on. I think a lot of fans or grifters have been critical of Tony Khan for doing that. A lot of people I think it's bad. It was bad business. I don't think there was any sense in it. Um, Now, with that said, Penta, his tag team partner, his brother, has already gone at WWE, and he looks like a star. He looks like someone who could win the Intercontinental Champion. Um, and I think initially we all thought, well, Phoenix and Penta are going to be a tag team in WWE, and I don't know anymore. I mean, I'd like to see the Lucha Brothers go to WWE, but gosh, it's hard to say that Penta's going to become a tag team wrestler now all of a sudden when he looks like a single star.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I think Well, first off, going off of the whole situation, I think we've talked about it, how it's just been a bad situation for AEW to have to deal with. Like the Ricky Stark situation, you got a guy, sitting there who wants to work, or at least Ricky Stark said he wanted to work. He wasn't able to. There was no really explanation why. He's going out there, you know, not directly bad mouthing him, but saying that it's an unfair situation for him. And then, um, Penta, he's obviously posted on social media about kind of being trapped there, and obviously doesn't want to be there. And his, with um, his brother being in WWE and being the star he is, um, and obviously I think the original idea was for them to come in together as a tag team. Uh, and I don't think it would. I think it would be a really good thing for WWE's tag team division to have those guys there together. Um, I don't know how far they have planned for Penta to go as a singles wrestler. I mean, are you going to have him beat Braun Breaker?
Mhm.
And guys like that. Is that? I don't think that's going to happen. So it'd probably be better for him to you know reform the Lucha Brothers in WWE, give that tag team division a shot in the arm, and really capitalize on that popularity that Penta's already got. Bringing Ray Phoenix in, he'll be able to be absorbed right into that, and go from there.
I was in the middle of writing an article for the Sportster, 10 best tag teams in the WWE right now. I started it on, I guess, last week, or I started planning for it last week, and I'm writing down a list of tag teams, and there aren't a lot of tag teams in the WWE. And then while I was writing the article, the Good Brothers and the Authors of Pain got released, right? So it affected my list a little bit, and you're going down the main roster. To my count, there are 10 tag teams on the main roster. Los Garzas, Pretty Deadly, Street Profits, The New Day, A-Town Down, who are on NXT right now anyways, but let's throw them out there. DIY, the Motor City Machine Guns, the War Raiders. Um, who am I missing right now? Um,
I mean, I would say like the
the
Usos, but
Tongans. Yeah, well, yeah, they're not a tag team right now.
yeah,
The
they're not tag team
Tongans,
right now. Yeah, the Tongans.
the Creed brothers are the
Yeah,
ones I'm missing, and that, to my knowledge, that's it. Those are the only tag teams on the main roster, and I don't even think that's 10.
no. Well, I mean, you have Braxium in NXT,
Yeah,
but
but they're on NXT,
yeah,
So, and you fire two tag teams who, quite frankly, have prestige and have had success in the WWE in the past. So once again, you're illustrating that you don't care about your tag team division. Um, I do think that it's stronger than it's been in the past, but is it? Because in the past you had the Usos who were actually like a box office attraction. There's no big tag team in the WWE right now. The New Day have been, but they certainly aren't now. It's not like they're dominant champions. It's not like they're main eventing episodes of Raw, as champions. So, um, it's a really weak division, and I don't. I mean, on one hand, I'd love to see the Lucha Brothers make it a little stronger, but
yeah,
I feel like Penta's getting way more bang for your buck as a single star right now. I mean, he's been presented so well, is my
yeah,
point, and I think they can do the same for Phoenix. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, I agree that obviously Penta has been big time for them. I mean, he's surpassed all my expectations of what I thought he was going to be when he first came over. Um, but at the same point, you could also take that popularity and you could take the momentum he has into the tag team division, which desperately needs it. I mean, as we saw at the Royal Rumble, they had DIY and the Motor City Machine Guns 2 out of 3 falls, and the crowd was just not into it.
Yeah.
They just and it's no fault of the wrestlers in the ring. It's just the WWE fan base has been so conditioned to not care about tag team wrestling.
Mhm.
Not since the days of like the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, guys like that where those tag teams were big time established and the crowds, were looking forward to those matches.
Yeah.
And now they've just over the years as tag team wrestling in WWE has been such an afterthought. that I think adding in uh the Lucha Brothers with Penta and his momentum, it could really, really help them. It could really help build that division up. I mean, if you have the Lucha Brothers in the ring, the crowd's going to pay attention.
Right.
I mean, um, so yeah, I think it would definitely benefit them a lot to have. I mean, obviously, I've talked about the tag team divisions in both companies has been really bad,
Yeah.
and it's really disappointing that's what's going on. But I think WWE they have all the ability in the world to make this tag team division great. They just need to put the effort in.
Yep. Um, Last free agency news. Josh Alexander, former, actually, I guess the longest reigning TNA champion in TNA history, TNA superstar, has entered free agency, and all reports are indicating that he's going to sign with AEW. Josh Alexander, personally speaking, one of my favorite performers in the world in the ring. I think he's 10 out of 10, great grappler, makes everything look real that he does. Um, Over the last few years has delivered some really terrific matches, including against the likes of Takeshita and Osprey, and he had a great Iron Man match with TJ Perkins on TNA, formerly Impact. That was awesome. And then they have a Speedball Mike Bailey, who's another former TNA X Division champion. He's gonna go to AEW, or he's already signed, I think, and he's just waiting to debut. And then Jeff Cobb, New Japan wrestler, former Olympic amateur wrestler, his contract with New Japan's up, and it seems like he's going to join AEW. So it's you get rid of three guys, and you think, well, now you not that they were really featured on television, I guess. So I don't really know if it's like a net positive or not. But you get rid of three guys, now you're kind of bringing in three more guys. It almost seems like. Um, my question for you is: do you think AEW has gotten so bloated they need to do a brand split? Like, do they have too much talent on that between two shows?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think their roster is very bloated. I think we've talked about it before. I know other people have talked about the fact that Tony Khan never releases anybody up until just now.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I think it's maybe as far as a brand split, it's maybe, but also too, I hate the WWE brand split. I kind of like the idea with AEW that anybody could wrestle anybody. There's no split in the roster that prevents them from doing so. I think that hampers WWE a lot with the matches that they could have, the rivalries they could have. So I don't really think you need a brand split. I think you just need to, you know, you book them in good storylines. Have more people represented on the shows. Obviously them losing Rampage, it took away a show that they could be presented on.
Yeah.
But I think if you have more of these wrestlers on these shows, I think it will help cycle out some people, have them on different shows and things like that. I think it will help. But as far as a brand split, no, I wouldn't do that. I don't know. Like I said, it hurts WWE, and I wouldn't want AEW to follow that mold.
Um, Maybe one day we'll do a culling games with the AEW roster and talk about what fat we would trim. But anyways, yeah, I definitely have a big roster, and um, I mean, sad thing is they released guys like they're going to release Phoenix and Miro and Starks, but they haven't really been contributing to the problem because they haven't been on television. And I do think, I mean, I don't know. I guess there are pros and cons. I mean, every pay-per-view cycle you can pretty much feature different talent on television, but there's also maybe in that respect a lack of continuity. Um, so for fans the 500 to 700,000 fans who watch every week, maybe that's a good thing, but I don't know, maybe not. Anyways, moving on. I have a fun game for you, Jordan. The WWE's filed the trademarks to 12 names. And I want you to tell me what the worst name is.
Okay, and these are actual names that they have trademarked.
They have trademarked these. I think it's 12. I'm not very good at counting, but I think it's 12 names.
Okay.
And I'm going to go down the line, all right? And then If you have any comments, stop me, okay? We'll pick apart this. But
Okay.
number one, Osiris Griffin.
Okay.
Number two, Hayes Jameson.
Okay.
Three, Trill London.
All right.
Four, Harley Riggins.
Okay.
Five, Summer Sorrell.
Okay. All right.
Six, Jax Presley.
Okay.
Mason Holiday. Mason with a Y, no O, with a Y. Mason Holiday.
Hold on. What? No. How do they
So,
spell it?
Mason, Mason, but instead of the
Yeah.
O, it's a Y.
Okay.
All right.
Kind of goofy.
Draco Knox. And it's Draco with the K instead of a C.
Oh my God. Okay.
Tate Wilder.
T. Waller.
Braxton Cole.
Okay. That one's not too bad.
You don't think? Okay. All right.
It's
N next is Chantel Monroe.
Shant. Oh my gosh. Okay.
And the last one's Aria Bennett.
Aria Bennett. Okay.
Now, these names scream, I'm an NXT jobber to me. But
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, they all sound like NXT uh, NXT wrestlers that I've obviously I would never have heard of, and I probably would never see until they actually showed up on the roster. But yeah, I don't know those. A lot of those names just sound really goofy. Like they don't. I mean, they obviously, if they trademark them, they obviously have an idea of who they're going to assign them to. But I don't know. I guess with the proper booking and the proper promotion, you can make any name a big name. So, um, maybe however long from now, when people who have these names are in the company for a little while, maybe they'll be big stars. I don't know, but yeah, that's a lot of really interesting names.
Jordan Grace. So this multiple news outlets have reported on this, and Jordan Grace retweeted a link on Twitter saying, "I'll take the name Trill London." Um, but yeah, no, it's just I mean these are Draco Knox.
Yeah, that would be. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't. I mean, if you imagine if you're a wrestler up and coming,
Yeah,
and you're trying to figure out your name, your gimmick, and they tell you, well, we're going to give you the name Draco Knox.
yeah.
I'd be like, fuck it, I'll just go to AEW. Like, I don't. This isn't going to work at all, man. Like, I mean, good lord, I don't. Like, what happened with people like wrestlers themselves coming up with their own names? Like, they're just
Yeah.
assigning these names to people. Like,
Imagine you're Chris Jericho in like 1994, and
yeah,
you've wrestled in Germany and Mexico and Japan, and you show up in the performance center and they're like, we're gonna name you Draco Knox.
yeah,
I mean, what the fuck? This is just,
yeah,
anyways, or Hayes James, you're a big guy, Hayes Jameson. Like
yeah,
that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
yeah. Like, what was the Mason name with the Y?
Mason Holiday.
Yeah, that's like fucking AJ Styles going to WWE. It's like, hey, we're gonna change your name to Mason Holiday.
It's
It's gonna be
crazy.
big time. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Um,
It doesn't surprise me, but that's really really bad.
anyways, moving on.
Yeah,
Jordan has a topic he'd like to throw into the hat.
yeah, yeah. It's something that I've I've seen it talked about a little bit on social media, and it's something that I've thought about a little bit also, just watching how things have progressed so far. Um, but I've been wondering as far as the champions in both WWE and AEW, looking at how they're booked. There's been a lot of negativity towards the way that some of these guys have been booked, some of these titles have been presented. Um, obviously Cody's reign you know, has been talked about not being as great. Gunther, his World Heavyweight Championship reign has been a letdown. Then the Intercontinental Championship is not as bad, but it's still not really been featured very prominently. Um, and then too with WWE, you just had two new mid card women's titles presented with the Women's United States Championship and the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and not like Lyra Valkyria, they've hardly ever talked about her since she won it. Like she's wrestled a few times, but it's not been any big deal. And then uh, Chelsea Green, obviously, I think she lost. I think on SmackDown. I think so. It's just like why even introduce those titles if you're going to do nothing with them?
Mhm.
Um, and then AEW, obviously, the whole Death Riders thing with John Moxley has not been very good. The TNT Championship doesn't feel like it's as important as it once was. The tag team championships just got a little bit better with the Hurt Syndicate. Um, and then we talked almost a whole episode about Mariah May and her women's title reign, how it's not been very good. Mercedes has been up and down. So my overall, you know, my overall question is: do the WWE and AEW have a problem booking champions? Is this an issue? Is it just people wanting to be negative about something? And if it is an issue, what is the best way to fix it?
Um, I think a lot of it's circumstantial. Because I think back to Gunter's reign, and I think Triple H did a really good job of booking him as champion. Um, and
Intercontinental.
yeah, did I say something?
You just said champion, so I'm
Yes,
assuming that.
I'm sorry, he's Intercontinental Champion. Yeah, I think back to his reign as as champion, as Intercontinental Champion, and I
Yeah,
think, wow, he had a great reign, great
yeah,
matches, great stories told over time, a great job of building his character and how he's going to be positioned going forward. I think being the Intercontinental Champion for him predicated a lot of what people think about him on the main roster now, because quite frankly, a lot of people just didn't know him from NXT and NXT UK. Um, I think it for Triple H, I think he does a really good job of booking the chase. Like he's made winning the title a big moment. And that's important. That's really important because I think we got to a point where we're really desensitized to it in the WWE. I think that's what made Kofi Kingston's win so important is because at the time, a lot of people had just become really numb to the feeling of someone winning a title in the WWE. And I think Triple H has done a really good job of making that moment important again. Jey Uso winning the IC title comes to mind. The Motor City Machine Guns winning the tag team titles comes to mind. Even though that was, happened really quick, it still was a big deal. Obviously, Cody Rhodes winning the WWE Universal Championship. Um, you know, I could come up with more examples, I'm sure, but he's done a good job of that. Now, flip side is how do you book a champion? And I could play armchair psychologist. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that when he was champion as a wrestler, it was oftentimes they were quick turnarounds. Like him winning a championship, he really was a transitional champion in most instances. Now he had long reigns,
yeah,
but for the most part, him holding the title was so someone else could knock him off for it. Um, and I think he struggles to book baby faces in a lot of ways.
yeah,
Um, and I think he's really fortunate that he has a lot of really, really talented people on his roster who have been able to get themselves over organically, like a Jey Uso, like a Cody Rhodes,
yeah,
Sami Zayn, to a lesser extent, obviously CM Punk. Well, on AEW side, I think they have way too many titles. I don't think that's even up for discussion. They have way too many belts. They've done a better job of not featuring other companies' belts on the show, which they had a problem with in the past, especially the Ring of Honor champions. But they have way too many championships.
yeah,
Um, and I think recently in the last 6 months, it's been exacerbated. I think Mariah May's reign was not good. Private Party's reign was horrendous as tag team champions. Okada has really been on cruise control since he signed with AEW, and he's obviously been the Continental Champion now for almost a year. And then John Moxley at the head of the table has just not been good. He's just not been a good world champion. And I think last week's Dynamite was really the first time he's ever done anything as champion that I was really interested in, which is not good because he's been champion now since October. Do you disagree with any of my assessment there?
Uh, no, I mean, the one thing I would say though is it feels like to me that once a lot of these long title reigns ended, like Gunther's title reign, Roman's title reign, it feels like those titles lost some of their value.
Hmm.
And I don't think he's done a good job of keeping that up. Like for me, the United States Championship, you think of when kind of around the time he took over. I mean, you had obviously there was no world heavyweight champion, and Roman had been the champion for years at that point. And I think you said to me one time the U.S. title basically was the other world title. It
Yeah.
had that value. You had like Seth Rollins going for it. You had Bobby Lashley going for it. A young up and comer in Austin Theory at the time going for it. I think Finn Balor had held it. Damian Priest. Guys like that were going after that title, and then you've had like Logan Paul held it, and that really really hurt the value of it. I think not even taking my hatred for Logan Paul into account, just the fact he was never there. He didn't hardly ever defend it. The title was hardly ever on the show. And you have a guy like LA Knight win it, and it felt like it gained some value back. And because obviously LA Knight, he's constantly on the show every week. He's wrestling, and then Shinsuke wins it, and he's only defended the title I think twice on television since like the end of November.
Mhm.
And even I think LA Knight even mentioned on SmackDown last night that he defended the title the most out of the last two guys who held it combined.
Yeah.
So I think he's not done well with that. Um, the IC title, like I said, it's been kind of up and down. Although I will agree that people winning the title is a bigger deal now because it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
Like back when we were watching, I mean, hell, a year-long title reign was unheard of when we were watching. I mean, titles changed hands all the time.
Mhm.
Um, so I agree with that point with WWE titles. And yeah, with AEW, I think it's just the people who are holding the titles right now. I don't want to, I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but like Daniel Garcia hasn't done anything with TNT Championship since he held it, or
No.
since he's been holding it. And then Jack Perry before him did absolutely nothing. Um, and then John Moxley, obviously our both of us don't like John Moxley very much. But even taking that away, it's this whole Death Riders story has been really bad. I mean, the title hasn't even been on the show and since he won it. It's been in the briefcase.
Well,
Um,
on Dynamite, it seemed like maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. But we haven't actually seen the belt on the
Exactly.
show. Like sometimes you forget he's the champion because you never see the title.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think AEW's case to me is more of it's the people holding the titles. I think if you like if you had MJF holding the title, or if you had Hangman win the title, or even Samoa Joe, I think the world title still has value and significance in AEW.
Yeah.
The TNT Championship, I think if you had, like I said, somebody a bigger name, more imposing than Daniel Garcia holding it, I think it would help that belt a lot. Somebody like a Shelton Benjamin, although he's the tag team champion now, but um, somebody to that degree, I think would help it. But yeah, I think them not having 50 titles on the show at one time has definitely helped AW a little bit in that regard.
They the Hurt Syndicate had a great tag team match against the Guns on Dynamite. And I can tell right now they are brewing a great. I mean, they've won the title now. They've defended it once. They've already been off to a great start as tag team champions. And I think they're going to become the monster heels that help rebuild this tag team division. Because Lashley and Benjamin are so talented still at their age. And I think I do think the good thing about Moxley is that when someone does win that title, be it because they're just the fans are so tired of seeing Moxley, or because Moxley's, done such a great job as a heel, whoever wins it, it's going to be a big deal. And I think they're going to go, I think you probably aren't going to, I think in most cases, when someone has a big title win, the energy is not kept. You lose a part of it when they win the title. But I think in this case, it's going to be a big source of relief for them. That it's going to help push that next champion in a bold direction.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
think the
no, I'm sorry.
no, I was say I think the main point is that both companies have done a good job of making it so that when someone wins the title, it's a big moment. It's a big deal. Most of the time, a lot of people care about it. It gets a big reaction. The problem is they can't keep it going after they win the title.
Mhm.
It kind of just fades off into the ether, and then it's just kind of who's going to have the next big moment. So I think trying to figure out a way to make it more interesting, have a longer feud for the title between two guys or something to that regard. But
I think that's what's killed the TNT Championship is that so many people have held it at this point in its 6 years of existence. I mean, they've probably had 10 people hold it already, maybe more. I mean, I could go down the list, but anyways, it's not really important. I think that you can't have titles overexposed. You can't, obviously for a company that's only 6 years old, the WWE, it's much different, but I mean, they just, I think they could do a better job of. I think a lot of what wrestling lacks right now is that, and this is across the board, is that there's no long-term plan for people once they win titles because you don't want to shoehorn yourself into something that the marks are going to realize, like, oh, we're expecting this now. You want there to be a level of spontaneity so people are shocked actually by decisions. And I think both companies struggle with that a lot. And I think I'll give Vince McMahon this. I think he didn't as much because he didn't care about marks.
yeah,
He was always pandering or always gearing his product towards the layman. And Triple H obviously does that less than Tony Khan does, but I feel like Tony Khan's been burned one too many times having long-term plans and people get hurt or things happen, whatever. I mean, any number of things happen in the world of professional wrestling that prevent those plans from coming to fruition. And I think he's just gotten to a point now where he's kind of scared almost to like put a title on someone and have a long-term plan. Um, I don't know. And I don't know. I'm not listen, if I had the answer of how you fix that problem, I would probably be in a role of position in a wrestling company, but I don't.
yeah,
So I don't know what the answer to that is. But I think that's a lot of the issue is that people are scared to have a long-term plan.
yeah. I mean, for in Tony Khan's case, kind of case in point is when this title reign started and it kind of had was going along, it kind of seemed like Darby was being positioned to be the guy to dethrone Moxley, and now he's off preparing to climb Mount Everest, and he's gone. So that kind of, like you said, it kind of throws a monkey wrench into the plans of like, okay, well now who's going to beat him for this title? So yeah, there's no easy answer to how to fix it or how to mitigate the problem, but it is something I hope that they kind of look at as and try to be a little bit better at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's also a problem in wrestling now that it's really hard to have interesting heels because no one wants their heels to be cheered, which maybe this is something that wrestling just has to evolve beyond. They I don't know. I mean, I think that's something that people have to deeply reflect upon that maybe we're just at a point now where you can't have heels and baby faces. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't think wrestling has reached that impasse with grace. I think it's really struggled in the last 20 years to come up with how you fix that. Because I look at Cody Rhodes and it's really hard for them to find a good feud for him because he's a really over baby face, but they don't have a lot of heels who can really stand counter opposite of him. I mean, AJ Styles turned heel and it lasted for a cup of coffee.
yeah.
He's back to being a babyface. I mean,
Yeah.
if you had Randy turn heel, how many people are really going to boo Randy Orton?
Yeah. Well, even too, on SmackDown, they had Jacob Fatu confront Cody, and Fatu was getting cheered more than Cody was.
Right.
Like the crowd was going crazy for him, saying he's supposed to be this monster heel. So yeah, it is really hard. And I think the days of a traditional heel are really over. I don't think you can have really anybody who just gets that level of heat that guys used to get. The fans are just not invested in. They just want to cheer who they like, and
Yeah.
whether that person is a good guy or a bad guy doesn't matter to them. Um, it's just that they have the traits that they like. If they're serious and they're just it's just destructive force like Jacob Fatu is, they love them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely tough to find that really good opponent for somebody like Cody, who's the face of the company, he's the champion, and there's no opposing force to really have him go against.
Yeah. And if people are booing someone, it's probably because they don't want to see them. And if they don't want to see them, they're probably not going to tune in and watch. It's not like because I guess in the 70s and 80s, some people still believe that the heels are really going to get their asses kicked, even though they probably in the back of their mind knew that wrestling was fake. They thought that maybe this guy's going to get his just desserts. And I just think I think that in the last 25 years, WWE's just conditioned people to realize that that might not happen. The heel might prevail over and over and over and over again to the point where it's nauseating. So, um, yeah, like would I love to see Logan Paul get his ass kicked by a shooter? Sure, but is that going to happen? No. So I'm not going to tune in and watch him. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous. The notion is laughable to me. But in the 70s and 80s, like I suppose people believe that still.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, anyways, I do think it's a problem, but I also think that the if you wrote down a list of champions right now, they're probably not the best. There probably are better people who could hold the titles that are available right now on both companies. I mean, to your point, Daniel Garcia. I loved Garcia's feud with MJF. I think he really shined as a star in that feud, but he did not keep that energy. He did not keep that level of intensity. He's not like that on the mic every night. He's just not the same guy as he was in an MJF feud. And I don't think that was AEW's plan. And I think that speaks to the level, people say MJF's fallen off, and I think that speaks to his ability, but anyways, um, any other thoughts on this, Jordan?
uh no, I think it's going to be an ongoing thing, just trying different things, seeing what works. And yeah, hopefully things will improve. And like you said, different circumstances will change how things are looked at. Obviously, for like something like when Jey Uso, it seems like inevitably wins the world title at WrestleMania. It'll be a
Yeah,
huge moment, a huge that people will talk about for a long time. And then after that, who knows?
yeah.
We'll see how they dictate that. But yeah, it'll definitely be something that will be a work in progress for both companies.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jey Uso, just like Bryan Danielson, when he won the title All In, it was an incredible moment. And it might have been ephemeral, it might not last, but that moment will live in perpetuity as something that was special to AEW and special to wrestling, even if he lost the title a month and a half later. And it could be the same for Jey Uso. He might win at Mania. He could lose it at Backlash. It will not take away from the spectacle of that moment. Um, Before we sign off here, we are recording this on Saturday morning, so Grand Slam has happened, but it has not aired live, or has not, I'm sorry, it has not aired on tape delay on TNT. We do not know what happened. We have not been spoiled yet. So we previewed the show last week. I don't really want to get into this in granular detail, but Jordan, what are your predictions for Grand Slam this evening? Starting with Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay versus Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher.
Um, I will say I would say probably Osprey and Omega will probably win that. Um, it just it seems like it's kind of a mismatch as far as the star power and the talent going up against Takeshita and Fletcher. Um, and yeah, I don't think they're going to have a major upset on this show, especially with the circumstances surrounding it. I think they want the fans to, kind of go home as happy as possible.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that'll be an Omega Osprey win.
I'm going to take Takeshita and Fletcher. I think Mr. Australia gets his win, maybe via nefarious means, but I think that Takeshita and Cal Fletcher will win. Mercedes Moné versus Harley Cameron for the TBS Championship. This has been a hell of a feud. Harley Cameron just winning over the audience every way imaginable has shined like a star in the last few weeks. What do you got, Jordan?
Um, I agree that Harley Cameron she has a lot of momentum going with this. She's really done well with making the fans really invest in this little feud so far.
Mhm.
But I don't think she's gonna beat Mercedes right now. Maybe down the line,
Mhm.
but this one I still think Mercedes is gonna win.
I agree. I think Mercedes' win streak remains intact. I think she's destined to lose this title at a grander stage against a grander opponent. Moving on, Kazuchika Okada versus Buddy Matthews for the Continental Championship. Buddy Matthews, obviously Australian, very Australian.
Yeah.
He's the hometown hero in this match. Who do you got, Jordan?
I'm gonna pick the upset. I'm gonna go Buddy Matthews. You want the crowd to really enjoy this show. I think, like you said before, when we are talking on different subject, Okada's been on kind of cruise control since he's been in AEW, kind of acclimating to wrestling in America, as far as English speaking. And I think it would do him well to lose and kind of, have a little bit of change in this. That would be a monumental win for Buddy Matthews. Um, and, obviously not being with Malakai leaving and their group kind of being a little bit in limbo. Um, I think him winning this would be a really big moment for him. In Australia, it'd be a good thing for Okada to change up what he's doing. And yeah, I'm going with the upset.
I like all the things you just said. You almost won me over there, but I got to go with Okada. I think his opponent for this title down the road is going to be Kenny Omega. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Buddy Matthews wins this in Australia, but I'm going to go with Okada. Uh, Moving on, another all-star tag team match. We have Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli versus the Rated R superstar Adam Copeland and Switchblade Jay White. They had an electric series of segments on Dynamite last week. Copeland and Jay White stealing the briefcase, threatening to open it. Moxley frantically losing it on Adam Copeland, pleading for him to give him the briefcase back. Adam Copeland insinuating that it doesn't feel as heavy as the belts he's held in the past. Maybe it's not in the case. What is in the case? Moxley seems afraid to let anyone see. So this is, Jon Moxley promised he's going to break Adam Copeland's neck. He accepted his challenge at Revolution. Who do you think wins this match, Jordan?
Uh, this one I've been kind of struggling with. Because on the one hand, I think as absolutely just disoriented and disappointing this whole Death Riders thing has been, I feel like you kind of you kind of want to try to build the Death Riders up to be a little more of a force than they have been. So I would think it would be better long term for them to win and beat Adam Copeland and Jay White in this, especially because Adam Copeland and Jay White are just a makeshift tag team. Claudio and Moxley have wrestled together before. They've been a team for a long time. So with that in mind, I would say that I think the Death Riders.
I like it. I like it. I'm gonna go with Adam Copeland and Jay White. I think this is an all-star tag team. Um, and I think if they're gonna have that match at Revolution, I think Copeland wins this one and then loses the singles match for the title at Revolution. I tell you what I'd like to see now. I'm gonna throw this out in the ether. Adam Copeland, Jay White defeat the Death Riders. Christian comes out and cashes in that Casino Gauntlet contract, pins Moxley for the title. At Revolution, we get Copeland versus Christian. That's what I want to see, but we'll see what happens. Um, anyways, last match, and hopefully the main event of this show, easily the most highly anticipated match here, over a year in the making. Mariah May versus Timeless Tony Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. I think I know what we both would like to see, but Jordan, what do you think will happen tonight?
I, well, yeah, obviously, I think both of us would like to see Mariah May retain
Hmm.
because we've said obviously this championship reign of hers has not been the best. I believe no fault of her own.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much mainly on booking as
Mhm.
to why this hasn't been good. Um, and I'm gonna say that I'm sticking with that Mariah May retains the title and keeps this feud going because this is the only feud it seems Tony Khan can make interesting in the women's division is Mariah May and Tony Storm. There's been a lot of mileage put into this. And Tony Storm just came back not too long ago, not going back to the timeless gimmick. Even though I'm sure she probably will win to have that moment in Australia.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna zag a little bit here and go Mariah May retains the title, shocks everybody, and keeps this thing going to eventually have Tony Storm win down the line.
Going back to our conversation about heels, I think if Mariah May won this, you're talking nuclear levels of heat. She's over or over as a heel in an entirely new way. But I think Timeless Tony Storm's going to win this match. I think they're gonna give the Australian crowd the moment of a lifetime for them, and maybe they run this back at Revolution as a trilogy. But I think Timeless Tony Storm's coming out on top on this one. Um, Listen, I don't know what happened at the show, but all things I've heard is that it was incredible. And maybe that's just AEW fans in their little echo chamber. But I mean, I think they have a wave of momentum right now. That Dynamite last week was the best one I've seen in years. I think this is going to deliver in spades. Um, and this is a fun little bridge between what's happened over the last month and a half in Revolution. I think this is going to be a fun way to ramp things up going on the road to Revolution. And I think this is going to be a good show. I'm excited to watch it, even if it's at 11:30. It starts at 11:30 tonight. I'm excited. Um, Before we sign off, Jordan, anything else you'd like to say?
Uh, no, I'm looking forward to seeing how Grand Slam goes. Um, Looking forward to seeing how Ricky Starks does in NXT, eventually on WWE. See what happens with Ray Phoenix and the other AEW free agents, and yeah, got a lot of interesting things going on right now. And AEW WrestleMania season is upon us, and a lot of things to build up to in the next few months.
Well, once again, thank you guys for watching. Please like the video, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about the WWE releases, Ricky Stark's debut in NXT, Miro, Malakai Black. Let us know what you think about Grand Slam, what your predictions are. If you watch this afterwards, let us know. Obviously we're either going to be right or we're either going to be wrong. I think all of us, the only thing we agreed upon was the Mercedes Moné beating Harley Cameron. So one of us is going to be right. We'll check back in next week and see what the score looks like. Um, but thank you all for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and talk to him, Jordan.
Top dogs out.